It's past midnight. You're alone in your home, the only light illuminating the room being the light of the TV. You foolishly decided to watch a scary movie. It is Halloween, after all. A bowl of half-eaten candies sits on your lap, mostly filled with the candy the children didn't want. There will be no more trick-or-treaters tonight. The children have all gone home. It's just you, alone, in your home. You're a bit ashamed to admit that the fake blood and the monster in the film is starting to get under your skin. It's all fake after all. It's just a movie, you reassure yourself. You watch and stare at the screen, your imagination being filled with the horrible imagery of the film. You decide to reach into the bowl for another treat when you pause, staring at the door. A sense of dread starts to creep in. You glance at the clock. 3:33 a.m. Who could be at the door at this time of night? You decide to ignore the strange knocking. It must be a mistake, but you can't help but become paranoid. The anxiety is filling every inch of you. Your body tense. You try to reassure yourself that it was just bad timing. The movie made you be on edge. There's nothing to worry about. But you can't help but feel scared. This feeling of unease, the anxiety and paranoia, that fear. Tonight, on Halloween night, we are going to be talking about the genre that encapsulates all of that. Hey everybody, I'm the Otaku Artist, and happy Halloween! Today, I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite genres in media, horror. The genre that is supposed to scare you, put you on edge, and get under your skin. The type of thing where to this day, some scary scene in a movie or game still flickers on in the back of your mind when you're having trouble falling asleep. And so, before we get into all the media in this frightening genre, let's begin with one important question. Why do I like horror? I like media that makes me feel something, a strong emotion, whether that's happiness, sadness, or fear. This video is all about horror, but I don't want to give the impression that that is the only strong emotion I want media to evoke in me. On the complete opposite side of the spectrum, it's why I love Ghibli movies so much. They make me happy and nostalgic for a place I've never been, with a strong sense of yearning for that fantastical element in daily life. The emotion those movies invoke in me is happiness. Or there's A Silent Voice, a movie I've only seen once and not sure if I'll see again. I thought that movie was incredible. It made me cry really hard and invoked such strong emotions in me. And so it really sticks out in my mind, even though it's been years since I first watched it. Now, those are just two examples. Media that makes me cry or be super happy or very frightened all stick out to me and leave an impact on me. Another example is the element of surprise in media. I love a story with a huge reveal I didn't expect. It's why I avoid all spoilers. I like the sense of surprise I get and how the media makes me think leading up to the reveal. Part of why the ability of media to make me feel something is so important to me is, well, I'm just so tired of media trying and failing to evoke any powerful emotions in me. For example, A character death scene where they want the viewer to be devastated, but ends up falling flat, well, is just so disappointing to me. I end up feeling nothing. I could care less about some character dying if it's not done well, or they fail to make me even like the character to begin with. So, when media sticks out in a way that affects me emotionally, I really like it. I think it's worth praising that element of the media when it's done well. It's incredibly important to me, and an element of storytelling I think is overlooked. When creating a story, I think it's very important to figure out how to make the viewer be affected. It's part of how you make your media immersive. Whatever emotion that may be, it's important to make the viewer care and be invested in whatever may be going on. And that's where horror media comes in. Good horror excels at evoking powerful emotions: intrigue, fear, anxiety, discomfort. Horror that works utilizes these feelings in a way that sticks with the viewer. When something gets under my skin, makes me scared or paranoid or disturbed, oh man, I love it. Because it's actually succeeding in doing its job. The genre of horror is meant to make you feel like this. It's also how it gets under my skin that's important to me. Sound design and music done well can be extremely powerful in evoking a certain mood or fear in the viewer. Silent Hill is a fantastic example of a series that does this very well. You've got stuff like scary monsters, body horror, gore, and more in the genre, but my favorite type of horror in media is psychological horror. I want to be told a story that makes me think, something that messes with the heads of the characters, their internal struggles and deepest secrets. Listen, I love a good monster, but a movie is going to stand out to me way more if there's more going on internally in the characters' minds. I've always liked creepy, spooky, and scary things since I was a child, even if it scared me at the time. I remember being 7 years old and just begging to watch the Alien movies with my uncle, who, after I promised I wouldn't be scared, let me watch it. And I adored it. I don't think it really scared me since I personally don't find aliens that scary, but that's just one example. Another is Coraline, which I will get into more later in this video. Now, with it being established why I love the genre so much, let's start getting into some examples of the genre. Keep in mind that all media is subjective, and what scares me might not scare you. As such, this video is very opinionated. Maybe you don't agree with any of this, and that's totally okay. What is considered scary really differs from person to person. This video just covers a small amount of horror content I thought was worth mentioning, and so I hope to introduce you to some scary games, movies, and more you haven't seen before. And I'm always looking for recommendations, so please leave a comment with some stuff in the horror genre you enjoy. Now then, with all of that exposition out of the way, let's begin with talking about the most popular media from the genre, horror movies. When someone says they like horror, you most likely think of horror movies first. Horror movies are probably the most popular form of the genre, with a lot of movies being mainstream and well-known, like Scream, Saw, The Shining, Final Destination, and more. Those are just a few examples of well-known movies most of you have probably already seen, or at least heard of. Now, I do like those movies, but since they're already so well-known, I'd like to focus on other films. I'd like to start the movie discussion with my current top 5 horror movies. My top 5 will probably change as this video ages, but even so, I'll always really like these films. Starting with number 5 is Midsommar. Midsommar? I don't know. I'm gonna call it Midsommar. A group of friends are invited to attend a Midsummer festival in Sweden. It's a special festival that's 9 days long and only happens once every 90 years. And, it's a one-of-a-kind festival, that's for sure. As you could expect, some really creepy and fucked up things happen. I'll just leave it at that. It's honestly a movie where the premise doesn't sell it alone. It's kinda a movie you just have to experience. I was so uncomfortable the whole time through, and it made me both disturbed and on edge most of the time watching. I'm honestly not sure if I'll rewatch this movie anytime soon. It's on the list because it fits the category of, holy shit, you succeeded at disturbing the audience so well. But I wouldn't say it's the most enjoyable movie. It's a movie you watch because you want to be disturbed, that's for sure. It really sticks out in my mind as one of those disturbing horror movies that has, like, weird shit going on that's so messed up, but you just can't look away. It's a movie written and directed by Ari Aster. Later, we'll talk about another movie he made, but oh my god, anything this man makes is incredibly good. From what I've personally seen, anyways. So if you're looking for a memorable movie that will leave you feeling disturbed, check it out. Next, at number 4 is Barbarian. The movie starts off with a girl who booked an Airbnb for a few days, as she has a job interview in town. She arrives at the place in the middle of the night. The neighborhood looks kinda sketchy, with a lot of broken down houses surrounding this one out-of-place home that looks in great shape. Which is so off-putting considering how the rest of the neighborhood looks. She tries to get in but realizes there's already someone inside. The Airbnb was accidentally double booked. That's not the only part of this strange situation, because there's something very wrong with this house. Don't want to say any more than that. If you're intrigued, give it a watch. This movie succeeds at being filled with tension and leaving the audience guessing. I had a few different theories on what was going on as I watched, and the movie really delivered with the plot. This movie is unique in the way that it's presented in a non-linear narrative. It focuses on one character at a time, slowly connecting the characters and events together. It works extremely well, and I love this format. I really want to find more media that makes use of this unique way of storytelling. It really helps add to the mystery of everything as you're slowly trying to piece together what's going on. I will say that this movie isn't perfect, but the good outweighs the bad. It gets a little silly towards the end and becomes a bit unbelievable, so I do have my complaints there. However, it does so much right, and so I can forgive it for that. Regardless of my complaints, I do recommend this film. This is a film by Zach Cregger. Now, I've only seen 2 films from him so far, and we'll talk about the other one later. I love his style in these 2 films, and I really look forward to what he creates in the future. Apparently, he's working on a Resident Evil movie. Neat! Moving on to number 3, Hereditary. Now, unlike the other movies, there's very little I can say about the plot. It's one of those movies you can't really describe without spoiling why you're recommending the movie in the first place. The most I can say is the Wikipedia premise, which honestly isn't even scratching the surface about why this movie is such a good horror movie. It reads as follows. A grieving family is tormented by sinister occurrences after the death of their secretive grandmother. There's not much more I can say, so I'll leave it at that. This is another Ari Aster movie, who, yet again, succeeds in creating a disturbing and uncomfortable film. It's not nearly as uncomfortable of a movie compared to Midsommar in my opinion, and is much more rewatchable for that reason. It's still uncomfortable though, don't get me wrong. It's incredibly good, and after you watch it yourself, I'd say it's a fun movie to watch with friends who have never seen it before. I still remember my dad's reaction when I rewatched it with him. Good times. Number 2, Nope. This is an alien horror movie, although it's very different compared to most alien movies out there. It stars 2 siblings who live on a ranch in California trying to capture evidence of a UFO. It sounds like a pretty basic premise, but the execution is incredible. I do not find aliens scary, at all, and yet this movie really scared me. I've never seen aliens depicted in this way before, and I think part of it is how there's a bit more going on besides the alien plotline. The aliens themselves are also just depicted in a very unique way I haven't seen done before, and is way more interesting than your classic green cartoonish humanoids. I can't believe they actually made aliens scary to me. This movie terrified me. It's so good, and why is it so good? Well, it's a Jordan Peele movie, so of course it's amazing. Jordan Peele is one of my favorite directors, writers, and producers in horror films. Anything this man makes that I've seen so far, incredible. Other movies he made that I've seen and are also very good are Get Out and Us. Highly recommend those as well. And at my number 1 spot, Weapons. As I mentioned before, this is a Zach Cregger movie, and holy shit is it incredible! Genuinely, 10 out of 10 movie. No complaints. It's so good. This movie came out this year, and I went in not knowing the premise or anything about it, and right away, I was hooked. I remember being in the theater, glued to the screen only a little bit into the movie, and turning to my boyfriend and being like, holy shit, I love this movie already. Before I even finished the film, I was looking forward to future rewatches. It's not a perfect movie, but it just really vibed with me and I adore it. Now you might be thinking, okay, cool, it's good, but why is it your favorite? What's so good about it? The movie starts off establishing the premise right away. In the middle of the night, at the same exact time, every child from the same classroom wakes up, opens the front door of their home, and just runs into the night, completely disappearing. All except for one boy from the classroom. What happened to the kids? Why did they run away? And why is there one boy left? Well, just like Barbarian, this movie follows a non-linear plot, focusing on one character at a time. This works even better than how Barbarian did it, and works so well with the established mystery. Every plotline is entertaining and helps add an extra layer to the mystery. And the best part about this? This movie actually succeeded in making me care about and like the characters. That is something extremely rare in horror movies. In most horror movies, I could care less about the characters because, we all know what's gonna happen to them in a horror movie. And so the writers also don't feel the need to make them be interesting characters. But this movie delivers. I was invested in every character. Since it's a scary movie, it does in fact succeed in creating tension and fear, but surprisingly also humor? This movie genuinely was really funny at times, and not in a bad way. You can tell that sometimes the movie knows it's being a little ridiculous, and lets the audience have time to laugh in between the really disturbing parts. I genuinely laughed out loud several times among the rest of the audience when seeing this in theaters. Can you tell I love this movie? Out of all the movies I talked about in this video, if there's only one you'll give a shot, please watch this one. It's so good. There's a reason why it did so well at the box office. It's probably the most fun and enjoyable watch I've had when watching a horror film. Now before I move on to other forms of the genre, I want to mention some other films that I recommend. I don't have time to go through every movie in depth, otherwise we'd be here a long time. So I'll only go over them briefly. These are films I watched and also liked, but aren't in my top 5. If you're looking for more movie recommendations, here you go. The Black Phone, a story about a boy who gets kidnapped and must escape, which also just got a sequel. I haven't seen the sequel though at the time of making this video. Long Legs, a tense and disturbing murder mystery starring Nicolas Cage of all people. Run, a psychological thriller starring a mother and her disabled daughter who begins to unravel a dark secret about herself. Heretic, the smartest movie I've ever seen focusing on religious horror. This stars Hugh Grant. Yes, the rom-com actor Hugh Grant, who is surprisingly amazing in a horror movie. Now for 3 movies with similar vibes. Together, The Substance, and Stop Motion are 3 gross movies that are a bit much at times, but still a good scary watch. Smile 1 and 2. 2 movies involving mysterious deaths where the victims smile before meeting their end. Sinners, a surprisingly thoughtful movie that has a really deep message. Best to go into this one completely blind. I Am Legend, a movie about the last man on Earth after the apocalypse. Unfortunately, the movie kinda loses me towards the end, but the good outweighs the bad and I still like it. I would consider this movie more of a psychological thriller than straight up horror, but I'm including it here anyway since it's a great movie. And those are just a few of many horror movies I've seen. Have you guys seen any of these movies? If you have, or end up watching them because of this video, let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Try to be mindful of spoilers in the comments though. Wouldn't want to ruin the fun for anyone. But wait! One little bonus entry before we move on. I can't leave this section without bringing up the best entry for horror in a children's movie. Coraline. If you somehow haven't seen Coraline before, please do, it's so good. Coraline is one of my favorite movies. When the movie first came out, I was obsessed with it. I saw it in theaters with 3D glasses, and the 3D effect for it was actually really cool. I read a comic version of it, but never got around to the book. Need to get on that sometime. I would spend hours watching behind the scenes videos on how they made it, and would browse the official website all the time. But wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. What is Coraline? If you somehow haven't heard of it, it's a claymation movie made by Aika Studios, the same people who made another spooky movie, Paranorman, which is another great movie by the way. The claymation art style really adds to the creepiness of the movie, along with a haunting soundtrack. The movie is about a girl who just recently moved to a new state, away from her friends and old life. She's unhappy, being in an old house in the middle of nowhere, with her 2 parents who are too busy to pay attention to her. But one day, she discovers a secret, small door in her house that leads to a parallel version of her world. Except it's better, and everything she wants and more. But things may not be as great as it may seem. Now it's time to move on to the second most popular avenue of the genre, horror games. And I'm not talking about those cheap 20-minute indie horror games purely made for YouTubers to play. I'll talk about that more later in the video, but right now I'd like to focus on some good horror games I've personally played. I'd like to start off strong with what I consider to be the best horror series out there. Unsurprisingly, I'm talking about the Silent Hill series. Now, I've already talked about the Silent Hill series a lot on my channel, and I'm not done yet. Some of you are probably here because you like Silent Hill. I like how deep Silent Hill is, with so much lore, monster designs that actually mean something, in a lot but not all the games, and I really like the stories of a lot of the games. I love survival horror, especially how the first 3 games handle it. If you somehow haven't played Silent Hill before and like horror, this is the best series to play. If I had to sum up the general overarching story of the series, I'd say that it's about a town that is just wrong. It's always covered in fog, and there's lots of monsters lurking in the shadows. Different people come to the town for different reasons, and some of the games mess with those people in a psychological way. Now, not every game takes place in the town, and each have different stories, but that's a pretty simple explanation of things. If you want to know why the town is the way it is, play 1 and then 3, as those games actually connect to each other plot-wise, unlike most other games in the series that are mostly standalone stories. But, if you haven't played any of the games at all, I suggest starting with 2, then playing 1, 3, and then 4. After that, the order is honestly up to you. I must mention the newest Silent Hill game being F, which is also incredible. It's a bit different than the rest of the series, not taking place in the town of Silent Hill, but Japan in the 60s. It has the vibe of Silent Hill, but also does a lot of things in a unique, different way, and so as a one-off game that kind of strays a bit from the series, I think it's pretty good. I would not start with that game though if you're new, but if you're itching to try that one specifically, please play at least the remake of 2 first. That'll give you a good taste of what regular Silent Hill is. I'd say that's a good starting point. The original 2 is also a good starting point. I love Silent Hill so much, and I've played most of the series. At the time of recording, the only main series games I haven't played yet are Homecoming and Shattered Memories. I also haven't played any weird spin-off sort of stuff like the play novel, mobile games, etc. The only non-main series I've played is The Short Message, a fan remake of PT, and, Silent Hill Ascension. But we don't talk about that one. My favorite entry is, to no one's surprise, the Silent Hill 2 remake. I love how it expands on the original, adding some new ideas while still staying true to both the original game and novel. That's right, there's a novel. You guys should read it, it's really good. I listened to this audiobook of it on YouTube and I highly recommend it. The way the guy reads the book is just really good. Fantastic fan reading. Now, I love the original game, and both versions of Silent Hill 2 scared me, but the remake remains the scariest game I've ever played. My second favorite has got to be 3, because that game terrified me when I first played it. I was on edge and anxious the whole time. It was great. I also think 4 is worth mentioning. I hope that game gets a remake because I really like it, but it has a lot of flaws a remake could fix. Notably in the gameplay department, there's some weird choices. Now I gotta cut myself off here, otherwise this video will turn into yet another Silent Hill video. So let's move on to some other scary games. Now when people bring up horror games, you often hear either Silent Hill or Resident Evil. And guys, I gotta be real with you all. Resident Evil isn't scary at all. Zombies are not scary at all. At least to me anyways. I've played all of the main series games up to 6, that being the last one I played. I enjoy the games and love the direction 4 takes, going for more action-adventure than horror. Not a bad series, but I don't think the early entries that go for scares will actually scare you, unless you're afraid of zombies and are easily frightened. Since I don't find Resident Evil scary, I'll keep this entry brief and move on. If you find Resident Evil scary though, I'd love to hear why in the comments. We've talked about 2 series most people have heard of, but I'd like to touch on 2 games that most of you probably haven't heard of. Starting with Scorn. Scorn is so incredibly underrated, and I wish more people would talk about it. I want more people to play it so bad that I considered very briefly doing a Let's Play of it, but there's no way I'd risk that. That game has a bit of artistic nudity, and YouTube doesn't like that. Scorn goes for a no-dialogue environmental storytelling angle that works incredibly well. The world and its inhabitants are greatly inspired by the works of H.R. Geiger, mixing flesh and machinery. It's a game that will leave you feeling uncomfortable the whole way through, and it'll surprise you the more as you explore the world. It's not a perfect game, but it's definitely one worth experiencing that not enough people know about. This is definitely the most uncomfortable I felt ever playing a game. I was uncomfortable the entire way through, and if that sounds like an interesting experience you'd like to play, go for it. Please play it. Next is Ad Infinitum. I haven't heard anyone mention this game, and it's a hidden gem for sure. It's a first-person psychological horror where you play as a German soldier in World War I. It's got a really good story, and more should play it. If you like story-focused horror that focuses on the mental repercussions of war, check this out. Now on to some more games that are more well-known compared to the previous two, but aren't as big as other horror titles. I'm going to group a few games into this section, as they all play extremely similar. I'm talking about Inside, Limbo, and Little Nightmares. These games all share a few things in common. They're 2D side-scrollers, where you move from left to right, solving puzzles and hiding from enemies to progress. These rely on environmental storytelling, and silent storytelling, with no dialogue, showing instead of telling. Out of these three, I think I like Little Nightmares the most, specifically the second one, as it's much more scarier than the first one. At the time of making this video, I haven't played the third one, but I look forward to when I play it eventually. Now it's time to talk about an underrated visual novel. Now, I love visual novels. Visual novels are such an overlooked, underrated genre that is full of amazing stories and characters. And one horror visual novel that comes to mind is Raging Loop. Now, I've played quite a bit of visual novels, like AI the Somnium Files, the Nonary games, Danganronpa, and more. Now, these visual novels all have some horror elements to them, but I wouldn't consider them straight-up horror games. And honestly, Raging Loop wasn't even gonna be in this video. I didn't realize it while playing, but it is a horror game. It says so right on the back of the box. I thought about it and was like, yeah, I guess this game does have everything that would qualify it as horror. I honestly think I'm just too numb to the genre as a whole that I didn't even think about it as horror while playing. But that's just on me. This game is a horror visual novel for sure, and an extremely underrated visual novel at that. It's very good, it has great characters, and a very intriguing story. This game takes place in a Japanese village in the middle of nowhere, deep in the mountains. Some of you are going to hate me for this comparison, but it's basically Among Us. I can't do this on... God, I'm so sorry I said that. Okay, I'm normal. What I mean is that in this small village, gruesome, unexplained murders happen, and the entire village tries to find out who among them is the murderer. Each night, the villagers decide on one person to kill in an attempt to bring an end to the murderer. There's a lot of supernatural stuff, monsters, and it's just really, really good. I really need more people to play this game. It's incredible. I really hope that I've convinced at least one of you watching to play it, and if I succeed, please let me know. I need to talk about this game more with people. The last game I want to talk about today is an RPG Maker game. Corpse Party. I love RPG Maker games, and there are some fantastic horror ones out there. You may have heard of some of them, such as Ib or Mad Father. Corpse Party is a series of horror games, but I've personally only played the first one, re-released on 3DS. It's about a classroom of high school kids who, through a friendship ritual of sorts, end up trapped in a horrifying version of their school. It's a ghost story filled with a lot of gore, aiming for more spooky vibes and a fun ghost story and less on fleshing out characters, unfortunately. The first game is pretty flawed, but hey, I really enjoyed it. I just recently discovered it has a manga and bought the first volume, and I'm very excited to read it soon. It also has an OVA, mainly retelling the story of the first game with some changes, including an ending unique to the anime. The OVA is short, only having 4 episodes. Apparently, this OVA is quite divisive with a lot of people disliking it. Me personally, I love it. I've seen it multiple times and it's one of my favorite anime to rewatch. I can't promise you'll like it as much as me, but if you're looking for a horror anime you can watch in one sitting, give Corpse Party a try. It's one of the few completely horror anime out there, as a lot of other quote-unquote horror anime is not 100% horror, and more so stories with horror elements. I personally think the story of the game functions better as an anime, and that's part of why I like the anime so much. But the game isn't bad, it's just you can tell that the person creating it is trying to tell a story first most, and so a lot of the gameplay stuff is flawed. But hey, I still recommend it. Now I mentioned that Corpse Party has an anime and manga, which leads into the next section of this video. Let's start off this section with probably the most well-known horror anime, When They Cry, also known as Higurashi. Higurashi has a visual novel, manga, novels, and of course, anime. I've only personally seen the anime, both the original and reboot. And I have to say, the original is not good standalone. Sorry, Higurashi fans. It's just not. The story takes place in 1983. It's about a group of friends living in a village when strange events start happening. There's a lot of blood, gore, and spooky stuff that occurs. The original focuses on the strange things that happen, showing a lot of scary stuff, but it doesn't explain any of it. That's when the new version of the anime comes in. If you end up watching the series, watch the original and then the new version. The new version will expect you've seen the original, and it helps a lot. If you watch just one or the other, you're missing a lot of information. Now, I love the new version so much, as it fleshes the characters out more and offers an explanation on why the weird and disturbing stuff occurs. And that's just it. The first anime doesn't explain anything, and that's why it kind of fails in my eyes. But if you look at the original as more of a season 1 or almost a prequel in that way, it's a little bit better. Just know that if you watch the first scene and you're like, okay, why is this happening? You will get an explanation, just wait for the reboot. I'd like to check out the other forms of this series, like the visual novel, as the new version of When They Cry is honestly one of my favorite anime I've seen in recent years. Now, you've probably heard of Higurashi if you're an anime fan, but have you heard of School Life? School Life is an underrated gem that I wish got a second season. It started off as a manga, which got 12 volumes. I've only seen the anime, but I really enjoyed it. Now, to explain the premise, I must spoil the first episode, so forgive me on that. It starts off simple. It's a cutesy anime about girls at school. What a novel concept. It has a bubbly and cheerful atmosphere until the end of the episode, where it's revealed that this whole cheerful school atmosphere is in the main character's mind. The girls do live at school, but it's during a zombie apocalypse. They live here to survive. This presents an intriguing spin on the zombie apocalypse setting, as the main character is so deep in denial. she pretends everything is okay to mentally survive her broken world. This also presents an interesting dynamic between her and the other characters, who aren't in denial like she is, understanding the full gravity of the situation at hand. It's not a scary anime, and some might not consider it horror since the horror of it only applies to the setting and for the characters, but I wanted to include it here. Loved what I saw. A solid short anime. Now we can't mention cutesy horror without talking about the cute horror anime, Madoka Magica. I really like Madoka Magica. The original 12-episode anime is solid. It's a dark twist on the Magical Girl series, and when done well, I do like the blend of cute stuff and horror. Unfortunately, a lot of media in that subgenre is just okay or trying too hard, but this succeeds in it and is one of the best I've seen in the subgenre. I've also seen some of the anime films and the spin-off, but really you only need to see the original series. The spin-off is just a mid-anime that misses the point of the original series, as it goes more of like an adventure fantasy and loses a lot of the dark aspects of it. And then there's the movies, which continue a story that already ended perfectly. The movies aren't bad, but the main series is just so good on its own. Next, let's talk about The Promised Neverland. Oh, Promised Neverland, such an amazing anime with such a great premise and delivery. Such a shame it never got a second season. Yep, it never happened. The Promised Neverland is about a group of kids living in an orphanage, when one day a friend of theirs gets adopted. As their friend leaves, two of the main characters discover a dark secret about the orphanage and plan their escape. The first season is so good, like actually amazing. It's a thriller filled with suspense and tension, and one of those anime that's good at delivering psychological horror. The first season ends perfectly. You don't need to see the second season. Jokes aside, there is a second season, and it's just terrible. It changes genres to adventure fantasy, doesn't follow the manga, and is just bad. Like, to explain fully how bad it is, I would have to spoil the entire plot of the story, so I won't do that, but just know it's really bad writing, like, really bad. So, honestly, the first season is the only one worth watching. And again, like I mentioned before, it ends perfectly, so it's fine to stop there. You are not missing out. Now, I haven't read the manga myself yet, but I heard it's so much better than season 2 of the anime and how the anime ends, so if you want to see where the story goes after season 1, that's your best bet. Next, let's talk about a divisive anime, King's Game. King's Game is more of a thriller with horror elements, but I wanted to at least briefly mention it. Apparently, most people didn't like this anime, which surprised me, as I really liked it. It's not perfect, but it stands out to me. The premise is solid, even if the reason behind why what's going on is a little silly. A class of high school students start receiving text messages, all from the same unknown sender, that orders them to do certain things. And if they don't obey the orders, they will die. I can't promise you'll like the anime, but hey, it's worth giving it a shot, right? Who knows, you might be like me and end up really liking it as well. I think it's pretty overhated because even if it's not the best, it's still an enjoyable anime. To end this section off, I have to talk about the king of horror manga who needs no introduction, Junji Ito. I must admit something horrible. As of the recording of this video, I have committed a terrible sin. I haven't read a single manga of his. Yet. I said yet! Put down the pitchforks, people! Now, even if I haven't read the manga yet, I've looked at a lot of his art, and I just love his style. The black and white manga look amplifies the horror with the lack of colors, and really adds to the overall feel. He does a great job at making visual horror that disgusts and is really creative. I've only watched anime based off of his work, and unfortunately the anime is all hit or miss. It's still worth watching if you like Junji Ito, but they aren't amazing adaptations. The most recent adaptation, as of this video, is Uzumaki. I have to say, the first episode is animated so incredibly well. Like, the best animation I've seen in an anime series. Like, that good. After that, the quality dips, and some episodes look pretty good, while others lack the same quality. It's unfortunate, and the anime could be better, but I still enjoyed it. I really appreciate that they kept that black and white look, as the other anime adaptations of his work typically don't. And I think that you're kind of missing a lot of the horror that Junji Ito creates when you add colors. As I said before, the lack of colors amplifies the scares and adds to his kind of otherworldly, weird style. Moving on from traditional horror media, I'd like to talk about a category of horror that has so many avenues of subcategories included. But for the sake of making this video flow better, I'm going to categorize all of these subcategories into one. On the internet, there's so many different forms of horror that aren't present in your traditional horror movie. You've got stuff like ARGs, creepy websites, SCP, spooky YouTube channels, and analog horror. Most analog horror can be found on YouTube, and these YouTube channels typically stay in character, acting as if they're found footage. They often look like they're old VHS tapes with cryptic messages, low-quality images, and act as if the viewer already understands what's going on. This wasn't made for you. This was made for someone else with context you lack at the moment. I really like this angle because it adds a sense of unease as you watch. They're pretty fun to try and figure out the plot of these stories. My favorite analog horror is Gemini Home Entertainment. This one actually got to me. It's creepy as hell and the best analog horror I've personally seen. Each video is a bit different, ranging from educational tapes, commercials, home videos, and more. They all have one thing in common: to prepare and fight back against monsters taking over the world. It's done in a way that's extremely creepy and does a good job at making the viewer feel uncomfortable. The monster alien things that are trying to take over the world feel like an actual threat and are pretty damn scary. The visuals really add to the scares and actually left me on edge and kinda paranoid. I recommend checking out the series and watching Nexpo's video on it. Next, I want to talk about my current favorite internet horror story, The Backrooms. But before I talk in depth about what the backrooms are, I must first explain what liminal spaces are. Liminal space is an aesthetic of creepy or abandoned places that have a surreal, nostalgic, and sometimes creepy appearance. These are normally pictures of real places, where the architecture of the place looks off, sometimes having room layouts that don't make sense. Most of these are indoors, but the ones that do take place outside often have a sense of it not looking real, like there's no clouds in the sky, or there are clouds but they just look fake, or it's nighttime but yet there's no stars, it's just a black void. One key characteristic of liminal spaces is that there are no people, animals, or life in the photos. Just empty rooms. I'm a huge fan of this aesthetic, and that's where the backrooms comes in. it takes this aesthetic and runs with it. The back rooms are a gigantic expanse of liminal space rooms, starting with this photo. A yellow wallpapered, dirty carpet-filled, empty office space of sorts. And to get to the back rooms, you must no-clip out of reality. This is typically shown in an accidental way in various versions of the story around the internet. I'm sure a lot of you watching already know what the Backrooms is, and it may be talked about to death, but hey, I like it, and so I wanted to include it here. A lot of depictions of the Backrooms contain a monster lurking among the rooms, but honestly, I prefer the depictions of the Backrooms without the monster. The horror of the Backrooms is just being stuck in a maze of endless rooms where you're all alone for the rest of your life. The creepy and otherworldly feel of this world that looks similar to ours but is just off is scary. There's no exit. There's no windows. Doors lead to nowhere, and the architecture of the rooms are nonsensical. By adding a monster into the equation, you're kind of missing the point. The rooms, the locations, that's the scary part. You're not supposed to be here. You got here by accident. You don't even know where here is. Who made these structures? I'm a huge fan of unsettling or scary stories that are about a location itself being the scary part. I'd love to find more stories in this very niche subgenre, as it's really fascinating to me. A while ago, I played a liminal space Backrooms indie game on Steam that executed my favorite rendition of the Backrooms perfectly. The game is short, only being about an hour long, and there's no monster. And somehow, I still felt on edge and anxious while playing. It kept on tricking me to feel like I wasn't alone. But the real horror is that, well, I was. The game is free on Steam, and I highly recommend playing it for yourself. Or hey, you can check out my livestream VOD of it too. To end off this section, I'd like to go over horror that typically isn't very good, but I have a soft spot for, and that's creepypastas. Most of you probably already are very familiar with the concept, but they're basically scary short stories on the internet, like for example Slenderman, Jeff the Killer, etc. Some are original, some are based on existing media, but I'm going to be focusing on video game creepypastas. Now, a lot of video game creepypastas, and creepypastas in general, are pretty bad. But I do have to admit that I do have a nostalgic soft spot for some of these horrible ones, like Sonic.exe. One of my favorites of the old school creepypastas is Ben Drowned, a Majora's Mask creepypasta. I think that this is definitely one of the best old school ones out there. Majora's Mask is already a pretty creepy and dark game, and so a creepypasta works well with it. It's basically about a haunted copy of Majora's Mask that has all sorts of weird glitches and strange things happening inside. But what made this story stand out is that the creator provided footage of it. I think that's really neat, and if you somehow have lived under a rock and haven't heard of this, it's a fun story to look into if you're already a Zelda fan. Next, I want to talk about two creepypastas that are pretty non-traditional. They are in different formats than just the regular text-based posts. These are both series that are on YouTube. The first is a pretty new one, Animal Crossing Wild World OST. Now you might be thinking, how the hell is the soundtrack for an Animal Crossing game on this list? Well, the YouTube channel Sepiatone released a quote-unquote found uncovered music in a different version of Wild World than what we got. According to a theory regarding the story, it's a version that an alternate world of ours got. Another theory is that it's a version that a lot of people got in our world, and people talking about it simply got lost the time on old forums that have now since become lost media. You have tracks like 0 AM, which for obvious reasons do not exist in the actual game. The music tracks released all sound very unlike anything in an actual Animal Crossing game, and depict events like a song when a villager goes missing. A song when a funeral happens. Game over. And more events that do not happen in Animal Crossing. This is one of the most unique creepypastas I've ever seen. The videos feel like they were made in Movie Maker, simply showing official art of the games. It feels like one of those gaming rumors you'd hear about in the early internet days, where rumors like finding the Triforce in Ocarina of Time or unlocking Toad as a playable character in Smash were prevalent. The music is also really good. I found this creepypasta when it first came out with the release of 0am. At the time, I legitimately thought it was a real beta song that was found, and went on with my life. I forgot about the video and channel until I started getting recommendations talking about the channel. As over time it grew, having even more songs and an actual story. I highly recommend the series, it's so cool. Make sure to read the description of every upload and comments, as a lot of the fans of the series like to stay in character as if this copy of the game is real. It's really fun. For some reason, the videos are all unlisted now, but I've included a playlist in the description, which should include the whole series. It's unknown if this series will continue or not, but man, it's such a unique idea. As a huge Animal Crossing fan, this is such a treat. Like, the idea of getting a game over in an Animal Crossing game, or finding out a villager went missing, is just so creepy. The ideas presented in this strange version of Wild World are incredibly intriguing, and I would love for someone to make a mod of this game with all these features included. I really hope that happens someday. I'd play that in a heartbeat. Like, imagine just playing regular old Animal Crossing, and then you walk into your favorite villager's house and he's just gone, just missing, and then the more you play, more villagers just disappear until you're the only one left. Like, tell me you don't want to play that game. Like, come on. That sounds cool as hell. Now, for the last entry in this section, let's talk about a series about a game that, well, doesn't exist. Petscop. Petscop is a Let's Play series about a supposed forgotten PlayStation game that contains some dark secrets. It's an incredibly well-done series, as the creator of the channel actually had to create a somewhat working game for the series, although it's never been released. The series does have a plot, although the creator omitted a lot of it as to make a series where you try to theorize as you watch. I watched every upload as it came out, and it was so fun theorizing with people trying to figure out the plot. It's a little too complicated at times, and I do wish that the creator would spell out the whole story to clarify certain things, but regardless, I still really enjoyed the series. When it was being uploaded, sometimes the descriptions of the videos, the channel, the profile picture, and banner would change. Not sure if any of that is archived, but that was also incredibly fun to speculate about when the series was running. The series is complete now, so if you're interested, go check it out if you haven't already. Now that I've talked about good horror, it's time to, unfortunately, talk about bad horror. Now, I've seen countless horror movies, played many games, and experienced horror as a whole so much that I'm largely unaffected by it now. Which is a bit of a double-edged sword, because now most horror doesn't really scare me at all. It takes a lot to scare or disturb me, and so I end up having to look for the more fucked up, scary stuff. and end up disappointed in a lot of horror media others deem extremely scary. I end up looking for a lot of media that claim to be the scariest, but those lists are mostly hit or miss. A lot of them don't do anything for me. However, I'm not saying that horror media that fails to scare me is bad. That's honestly mostly on me for being numb to most scares now. Even if something doesn't scare me, as long as I can tell that it was trying and probably scared others, and is a good movie, game, whatever the media is, I still enjoy it and like it. I understand that what is scary is highly subjective to people. But there is a huge difference between something that tries and fails to be scary to me personally, but is still a good piece of media, versus something that is just horrible. The horror genre is unfortunately flooded with bad horror, whether that means it's cheaply made, isn't even trying to be scary, or is indie horror slop. Now, what do I mean by indie horror slop? Indie horror games are not all bad, but most horror games out there unfortunately fit into the slop category. This is referring to quick 20-minute games typically just made for YouTubers like Markiplier to play. They're always badly made, typically using free assets, and go for cheap scares that aren't even scary, like not even to those who are easily frightened. These games are normally first person, they use cartoonishly bad sound effects like overused screams, and the gameplay is not good or deep at all. A lot of them also reuse the PlayStation 1 or 2 graphical style, which I like, but at this point it feels lazy with how many bad games out there utilize it. Quite a large amount of these also use jump scares to death. I'm personally not fond of jump scares because they never scare me. Catching me off guard and surprising me is not the same as scaring me. It's more of a jump of like, oh, I'm not experiencing fear. The only example of jump scares done well in indie horror that I've personally seen is Five Nights at Freddy's, funnily enough. Now, I'm not knocking people making these kinds of games to practice game making, or if it's their first game ever. I'm sure a lot of these games are just made by young kids just learning how to code and such. But the amount of these is kind of absurd. And unfortunately, when you ask people what horror games they like, a lot of them have only played or heard of these cheap games. I'm sure you've seen popular YouTubers play these kinds of games, and I really do feel like most of them are made specifically just for YouTubers. I'm just so sick of seeing these kinds of bad games flood the genre. It's hard to find good horror games with so many bad ones out there. Can you tell that this has bothered me for many years? However, there are some outliers in this category that are pretty good short experiences, like the Backrooms game I mentioned earlier. I would not consider that indie slop. Like, it's well made. Another example that comes to mind are games made by the indie developer Yams. He made games such as Water Womb World, Discover My Body, and, Growing My Grandpa? Yeah, great title there. His games have an incredibly unique art style to them and really succeed at just making you feel so uncomfortable. I highly recommend checking them out if you haven't watched or played them before. Another example of good indie horror is Doki Doki Literature Club. The execution of that game's idea is great, and I think it's one of the better cutesy horror games out there. I just wish that game wasn't spoiled to death because it was best experienced when no one knew it was a horror game. Another example of bad horror I see constantly is mascot horror. I feel like Five Nights at Freddy's is the only one that worked, and everything else just feels cheap and lazy. As overcomplicated as Five Nights at Freddy's plot, quote-unquote, is, I've liked what I've seen of it. Like, I love the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, and I'm really looking forward to its sequel. After FNAF, so many copycats tried to jump on the mascot horror bandwagon, and they're all so cheaply made and terrible. I think that Garten of Ban is a perfect example of just an awful cash grab. This kind of horror is catered to kids, which, first off, holds it back from being truly scary, and is just such an overused idea. Mixing cute stuff and horror can work well, but not in the form of a kid's mascot anymore. It's so overdone, guys. We need to move on. To end off this section, I'm going to say something quite controversial. The worst horror movie I've ever seen is Skinamarink. Now, I heard about this film because everyone was claiming it's the scariest movie they've ever seen, and it was really hyped up. And so I was really interested. The scariest movie ever, supposedly? Sure, I'll buy it. I'll check it out. And so I booted up the movie, and all I saw was this. For 2 hours. Skinamarink is so bad, guys. It's so boring. It is so boring, in fact, that I had to watch it in 3 sittings, and I barely could get through it. It's an experimental film where the entire movie is long shots of blurry, nighttime footage inside of a house. There's barely any dialogue, and so the plot is pretty much non-existent and impossible to follow. I genuinely cannot understand how anyone watched this for 2 hours and found it scary, or could follow anything. And you know what the worst part is? Apparently, this movie's budget was $15,000. What the fuck did they spend it on? This entire movie takes place in one house at night. You could make this movie for free with someone's house and a phone camera. This movie stars 4 people who are barely even in it. No way it cost them that much to pay the people in the movie. And you might be thinking, maybe it's the camera equipment. No, you could use a phone camera. First of all, you're filming at night. It's hard to see. There's like nothing but almost just static on the screen. And the camera angle rarely changes. It takes several minutes in between shots. You could just set up a phone. Now, I will say, I give the creator props for trying something different and experimental. However, this does not work as a 2-hour film. If this was uploaded to YouTube in short minute-long chunks, telling a cryptic story over time, similar to an ARG or analog horror, I think it could actually work. But in the format it's presented, it's just awful. If you find Skinamarink good or scary, please leave a comment. I need to understand what I'm missing and why people love it so much. Because honestly, the biggest reason why this movie pisses me off is the fact that people saw nothing but blurry, static images for 2 hours and were scared. Like, I know that I am numb to scares, guys, but even objectively, even trying to view this in an angle that, like, well, I'm numb to scares, but other people are easily frightened. How? How did anyone sit through it? It took me 3 watches. Phew, that last section left a bad taste in my mouth. I don't want to end off this video on a bad note, so let's continue with one last section. Horror in non-horror media. Now, when I say horror, I'm kind of exaggerating here. What I'm more so referring to is scary things in non-horror media, whether it was or wasn't intended to be scary. The things I talk about in this section are nothing compared to actual stuff in the horror genre, but I still wanted to talk about it. Sometimes it's intentional, like parts of Fragile Dreams for the Wii being very creepy, which I personally would argue is a horror game, but apparently most people online disagree. Very underrated game, I might add. And other times, it's an unpleasant surprise. One moment, you're having a great time in your family-friendly video game. The next, you're suddenly caught off guard with something scary. I'm sure you all have experienced something scary in a game when you weren't expecting it. All of us have memories of hearing the cursed River Twig song from Paper Mario. Yes, this song is from a Mario game of all things. Or getting to the bottom of the well in Ocarina of Time as a kid, and being met with this. Dead Hand remains my favorite mini-boss in the series to this day because it's just unlike anything else from the series. Why does it look like that? What is that? And why is it at the bottom of the well? In fact, let's keep talking about Zelda because there's some fucked up creepy shit in those games. Just look at the rest of the bottom of the well or the Shadow Temple. These are straight up torture chambers in my Eve for Everyone game. There's also Redeads, which scared me so badly as a child that I would avoid them at all costs. I would make a family member literally beat the Shadow Temple for me every time I replayed Ocarina of Time because I was so scared of these areas. Fun fact about Redeads, by the way. In Ocarina of Time, if you kill a Redead that's close enough to another, the living one will slowly make its way over to the dead one and slowly consume it. What the hell, man? This is a Nintendo game. There's also the creepy and otherworldly Forest Temple in Ocarina of Time, the entire game, Majora's Mask, and a lot of dark things in Twilight Princess. Speaking of creepy things in Nintendo games, the original Luigi's Mansion has off-putting creepy vibes unlike any of the other games in the series. Because it was an early GameCube game, and during the era of Mario, where they were still trying to solidify the character models and designs, the graphics really add to the atmosphere of the game. Luigi's Mansion also has a lot of urban legends tied to it, but looking at the actual game itself, without those gaming hoaxes even in the equation, it's still a pretty creepy game. Not scary, but creepy. Before we move on to non-Nintendo stuff, let's talk about Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing itself is not scary or creepy, but there are a few creepy things hidden in some of the games. There's two songs that come to mind. KK Hypno, and New Leaf's 4 AM music. There's also the original gyroids. Most Animal Crossing fans already know this, but gyroids were based on Japanese clay figures used in burying the dead. And where do you find these gyroids in-game? Buried in the ground. It's also a little unnerving that the bunny villager, Coco, has a striking resemblance to the gyroids. Is she one of those clay figures come to life? And that's not the end to the creepiness that gyroids add to the game. In the original Animal Crossing, if you were to reset the GameCube while visiting another player's town, you would suffer some scary consequences. You would lose all of the items in your inventory, but you probably wouldn't notice. You'd be distracted by the fact that your face is missing, replaced by the face of a gyroid. Most people cite this creepy occurrence as a glitch or urban legend, but no. This is real and something the developers programmed in on purpose. This scary event was intended. This was most likely put into the game to scare off the player from doing this again. Although it's interesting that this was even included, considering Resetti is in the game and was created for a similar purpose. One last creepy thing in the original Animal Crossing, but only in the Japanese version, is the developers put in a blood-covered shirt. Called the tomato juice shirt. Yeah, still gotta keep it family-friendly somehow. I wish that Animal Crossing still did strange or creepy things like this. The closest we have now is the haunted fake paintings in New Horizons, but it's not nearly as cool or creepy as stuff in the first game. There's also the alien broadcasts that happen in some of the games that are pretty creepy considering they only happen at 3:33 a.m. So I can see that scaring some people because it's at a time where most players are playing alone in a dark room. Now those are some creepy things that the developers created, but what about something that wasn't intended? Imagine you boot up New Leaf and decide to pay a visit to the Dream Suite. It's past midnight, and you should be asleep. Tomorrow is a school night. Only a few hours to go till sunlight arrives. And yet, here you are, playing your 3DS alone, no one else awake. You talk to Luna, the villager who runs the suite, and ask her to take you to a random dream. No exact destination in mind. She says she's found someone's dream. A memory of a town you've never heard of before. And so, you lay down onto the bed. It's so comfortable you drift off into sleep immediately. Slowly, your vision starts to return and you awake in a town. But you wish you hadn't. Of all the places, why here? Something's not right with this town. The town called Aika Village. Aika Village is the most well-known horror town in the Animal Crossing series. It's so well known that there are many YouTube videos about the town, including one I made myself. To my knowledge, I think I'm the last person to record footage of the town before the online service for the 3DS shut down, but I'm not sure. This town makes use of some of the creepy and strange furniture and items from the game, as well as custom patterns and clothing. The story has many interpretations, all involving a girl with a doll and her family. Unfortunately, with online shutdown, you can't visit the original town anymore, at least not with official means. But you can visit the new rendition of it in New Horizons. I prefer the New Leaf version myself, and if you're curious about the town, I have a video on my channel exploring it. Moving on from Animal Crossing, there's one last Nintendo series I'd like to take a look at. The series that is the closest Nintendo will ever get to the horror genre. Metroid. I really like Metroid, and have played every entry in the series aside from Pinball and Prime's remake. And this series is straight up creepy and horrifying at times. All of these games are incredibly dark by Nintendo standards and have an aura of loneliness and unease. But the most notable entries in the series that have the most horror elements are Fusion, Dread, and a certain part of Prime 3. In Fusion, there's sections of the game where a twisted version of yourself lurks in the shadows, searching for you with one goal: to kill. In Dread, you must use stealth to sneak past machines with the goal of hunting you down. And in Prime 3, there's straight up a section that's basically just dead space, with dead bodies, in a Nintendo game. And not just in 3, in other games you can just find human corpses. Super Metroid literally has bodies on the title screen. That's just scratching the surface. Metroid as a whole succeeds in making the planets you explore have a creepy and unsettling atmosphere, focusing on loneliness. You're the only person here. The only other life on this planet are creatures who just want to harm you. Now for some non-Nintendo games. To those who have played this game, which should be most of you, you understand. For the 5 people who haven't played this game, you might be confused. Minecraft. When mentioning Minecraft in a video about horror, you may think I'm referring to Herobrine, but no, I'm talking about the base game. I still love the Herobrine myth, don't get me wrong. It's my favorite creepypasta, and yes, as a child, I did believe that Herobrine was real and going to delete my world. I remember getting really into Herobrine roleplays in servers, making up stories about him, or trolling servers pretending to be Herobrine, watching Herobrine fan projects on YouTube. Man, good times. I'm getting off topic though. What about vanilla Minecraft is scary? Well, a lot. And most of what's in Minecraft is not intended to be scary. Everyone has been scared by cave noises randomly deciding to say hello when you're alone in a mineshaft. Or maybe you've seen a suspicious formation of blocks that just looks a little too man-made. But all of you know that already. Minecraft being creepy has been talked about a lot. But there's one thing you may not know is real. Something some of you may have experienced, including myself. Sometimes when playing, you'll hear blocks being destroyed or placed by no one. Now, there are recorded accounts of this. This is not a mob doing this, as these are sound effects that only players can make. As a kid, when I heard these, I thought it was Herobrine, and as time went on, I kind of forgot about these random occurrences. But recently I saw a video going into it. Apparently this is real, but no one knows why this happens. Most consider it a glitch, as the recorded accounts show that all players hear it, even if they're far away from each other, which means nothing is actually being placed or broken. I've personally heard it most in the form of a player digging down into dirt blocks. It's a really weird, strange phenomenon. I'm curious how common this weird glitch of sorts happens, so please let me know if this has happened to you. It's really creepy and adds a lot to the already creepy vibes the game unintentionally has when being played alone. And now the last entry in the video is something very obscure that probably none of you watching have heard or played before. This scared me so badly as a child, and it's so obscure I've never met someone who's played it before. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Courage the Cowardly Dog. It's a creepy and weird cartoon. I've seen all of it and I quite like it. Now, what you may not know is there was an official Flash game for it on Cartoon Network's website called Creep TV. This extremely short game scared the shit out of me as a small child. It plays like an RPG Maker game, and on the surface, it doesn't look scary at all. But it's just so unsettling. There's just something really creepy about it. Like, play this alone with the lights off at 3 a.m. Still to this day, this game's sound design creeps me out. There's even a ghost that follows you around. And I must admit something. This game scared me so much as a small child that I never actually beat it. Apparently, the game ends in a silly game show, but I never got to the silly parts. So I only experienced the unsettling parts. Another reason I never beat the game is because I was such a small child, I couldn't figure out how to beat the game, but I would just give up before even attempting further because I was so scared. It's a really well-made Flash game, and honestly, I'd like to beat it and re-experience it one of these days. Hell, maybe I'll do that in a video sometime so I can relive the fear I experienced as a child. And with that, I think it's time to start wrapping up this video. As you can tell, I really like anything and everything horror. And here's the thing. I didn't even cover everything spooky and scary I like in this video. So who knows? Maybe I'll cover more stuff from this genre in the future. You guys heard me talk about how much I love this genre for like 2 hours. Thank you for watching this far if you have, by the way. This video was a lot of work. So, I'm curious. What are your favorite horror games, movies, etc.? please leave a comment with some recommendations, because I'm always looking for more horror media to check out. Also, I wonder how many times I said the word horror in this video. I rarely get to talk about my love for this genre, so this was really fun to make. Before you click off this video, you may have been curious on the art I drew in the background. There's a part in the Silent Hill 2 remake that stuck out to me, and so I decided to draw it. It's also unique to the remake too, which is kinda neat. I typically don't draw backgrounds, but I had a lot of fun drawing backgrounds in some of my Omori fan art, and wanted to give a more detailed background a shot. The idea for this drawing has been in my head since I first played the remake, so I'm glad I finally got around to drawing it. Now, if you like the art in the background, I do want to mention that I have it up in my shop as a print. I also have a lot of my other art over there. So, go and check it out. The link is in the description. Check back every once in a while because over time I add more and more of my art there. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this, throw me a sub and check out my other content. I have so much variety on my channel that I'm sure you'll find something you enjoy, including more video essays like this. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm the Otaku Artist, and have a spooky rest of your Halloween.